He's a man that claims to want to, oh, he'll fix all the problems with Trump. But really, Canadian jobs, Canadian oil, we have suffered under the Liberals. And I don't think that Canadians understand just what they've elected.
Now, this week has definitely been a bit of a roller coaster, especially following Monday's election, not really going the way most of us were hoping it went. And just the news cycle in general with Alberta, Mark Carney coming out with some weird announcements that sound very much like conservative talking points. Us seeing what happened across the world with this whole net zero agenda and how we might be the next case study for this, as well as some voter irregularities that I came across. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. So let's get into that. Now, I want to start off by saying I don't think the election was stolen in any way. However, some of these claims that have been put forward to me make you kind of wonder about the validity of our process. There was multiple people that I heard anecdotally as well as just across the internet who said that they went in either on the early voting day or the on Monday and were told that they had already voted. Now, how this is possible, I'm not sure. These elections, Canada guys always have that ruler. They cross the name and the line there. So how they could have these fail safes and still cross off the wrong name, maybe it happens. But for the amount of stories that I saw, it seems a little irregular. Now, one person that did mention this was somebody I know quite personally, and it actually happened to her mother. Her mother was told that she had already voted when she was like, well, clearly I didn't. That's why I'm here. And she was given a chance to vote again, but she had to prove who she was, sign a declaration saying that she wasn't voting twice. But then the question still remains, what happened to the other vote? Because it's not like they could find that one and take it out. And who did that vote go to? So these are some questions. And like I said, online, this also has been a thing. In person voters being told they had already voted. Now, this is off Reddit. Take it for what it is. But it says, I have heard 3 instances of people, 1 close friend and 2 online, being told that they had already cast their vote when they had not. How does this happen? How they not showed up in person to vote, they would have never known that their vote was incorrectly cast. We should receive confirmation via CRA website or similar or by mail to confirm your vote was cast correctly. How many votes were cast on behalf of people that didn't intend on voting? Very sketchy. Now, again, I'm not insinuating that there was any foul play, but it seems like some of these issues are there. There has been some sort of explanations giving, saying what these usually turn out to be is someone is mailed in their ballot with required documentation and either A, forgot they did vote, or B, mistakenly believe they can change their vote by going to the polls election day and casting another ballot. Who knows if that's the case? However, this person said, this happened to my husband. He did not forget he already voted. His name was crossed out when we went on election day. They said it happened twice already that day. They said he could fill out a form and then vote, which I believe would be this declaration. However, he would be risking a $50,000 fine if he couldn't prove that he hadn't voted already. I filed a complaint that day but heard nothing back. There should not be this much room for human error. I won't allow my brain to go into conspiracy mode, but it is sketchy. We're in a small town near Ottawa. Again, I don't know how true any of this is. These couldn't be anecdotal, but again, I do know somebody that I interact with on a daily basis whose mother also had this happen to her. Another situation was this, which is a Facebook post. I don't have Facebook, but I was sent this thumbnail or screenshot of the post saying, this is from a poll worker in Kelowna. I worked as an information officer in the federal election on April 28th, 2025. I was at the Dr. Knox Ecole School polling station in Kelowna, BC from 5:45 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. I want to put in writing what I witnessed. 1. Numerous voters, at least 50%, asked if they could use their pen that they brought to vote. I said yes. Later, after the polls closed, I was then asked to do the tally, record the choice of the ballot. As the deputy returning officer called out the name of the candidate selected, I was to record it. I noticed none of the ballots were in pen, only pencil. I know for a fact I sent most voters that had voting cards to desk 17. The total of the votes tallied at desk 17 were the most of any other desk at the polling station. I asked my DRO why none were in pen. No answer offered. These ballots were then put in the envelope and sealed. My signature is on the record as I tallied the total. 2. I noticed many of the voters turned away that had proper ID. I talked with many to ask why they were refused, as these voters were very upset and felt very concerned that they were refused. It turned out that an entire apartment building on Valley Road was missing from Elections Canada information, meaning none of the residents had voter cards. Without the cards, they needed to provide valid ID. Without proof of the building existing, none of the occupants could vote, even with valid passports, driver's license, mortgage documents, rental agreements, bills, etc. It was mind-boggling to watch these people turned away. I brought each person to the supervisor to help them vote, and the supervisor said that there was nothing that they could do without Elections Canada approval. Now, again, as I said, I do not have Facebook, but this was something that was sent to me via email, a screenshot, claiming that this is from a poll worker in Kelowna. So now you have stories from somebody that I interact with on a regular daily basis here in Ontario, but then also you're getting claims from this happening in Ottawa from the Reddit post, as well as in the other side of the country in Kelowna and BC. How much this really affected the election, I don't know. I'm not claiming that the election was stolen. I just wanted to present you guys with some other information that I had got. Now, with that being said, I wanted to move on to Mark Carney and his first press conference this week, because he said quite a few interesting things, very conservative things, and to the point where even the CBC was quite shocked by it. Take a listen to David Cochrane.
Rosie, a lot there.
But that might have been the throne speech, actually.
It might have been less flowery.
Yeah.
It's very economical, but it kind of boils down to axe attack, stop the crime, build the homes, and fix the budget. When you look at a lot of the core priorities, it's an interesting shift in this Liberal government stance on many issues.
Like, how funny is that you have the CBC's David Cochrane basically saying that Mark Carney is plagiarizing the Conservative platform while he repeats the slogans of axe attacks, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. But in all honesty, what is to be expected from Mark Carney other than this? The guy has no original ideas. If you look at his cabinet alone, it's a carbon copy of Trudeau. You even had Daryl Bricker, the CEO of Ipsos polling firm, coming out on a podcast this week saying this.
They don't have members of parliament of any significance other than in British Columbia and maybe downtown Winnipeg that can really participate in this. We have an entire federal public service which is essentially built to not represent Western Canada. Right. They seem to not be able to acknowledge that this is a point. It's just the predisposition of people in the previous administration, and by the way, the previous administration is the new administration. They only changed one person. Their view is, I'm going to explain it to you why you're wrong.
Now, Carney apparently claims he's going to be swearing in a new cabinet. I think it's come next week or the week after, but nobody's going to be any different. It's going to be the exact same people, maybe one or two, but that's about it. And I think this is what's triggered Danielle Smith to come out swinging at the federal government this week, telling them that she's going to take them to court if they don't basically stay in their lane and respect the constitutional provincial powers. Then there's going to be a lot of trouble at hand.
And what is your personal position on Alberta separating from
My
Canada?
personal position is I believe in Alberta sovereignty within a united Canada.
What does that mean?
It means like what we're doing today. When the federal government violates the Constitution, goes out of their way to interfere with our exclusive jurisdiction, we are going to meet them with every step that we can in order to preserve our ability to manage our own affairs. And in today's announcement, particularly for electricity, we are simply not going to allow the federal government, based on ideology, to violate the Constitution and put our people at risk of being in blackout during the dead of winter or the heat of summer. We're just not going to do it. So these are the kind of things that you can expect to see from our government, and we'll do more of them if we have to.
Now, I gotta say, listening to Danielle Smith makes me want to move to Alberta even more, but she was getting a lot of flack this week for her lack of unity with the way she was talking. But even a former Liberal, Dan Matteague, who's been very outspoken about this Liberal government, what liberal being a Liberal means now, he even said that Mark Carney is not for unity and he is the problem.
We have a new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, some happy people and some not so happy campers. So he's saying unity is a priority. Ah, man, we've got a lot of this going on. Any thoughts on, I mean, realistically, can that happen? Can he bring some sort of unity? What would he have to do to do that?
Well, he'd have to shed, his wolf in sheep's clothing. This is a man who has very much been a part of the international effort, global effort, WEF, or whether it's the UN's representative on pushing things like GFANs around the world, getting financial institutions not to invest money in oil and gas, which the world cannot survive without. Certainly, Canada economically cannot survive without. This is an individual who has, swallowed the whole idea of the 15-minute cities and made it very clear that he wants to continue with some form of carbon tax. This is a fellow who obviously has no trouble with EV mandates. This is an individual who is really the prince of net zero. He is hardwired for this kind of policy, which is extraordinarily, and I would say foursquare, aimed at undermining the Canadian economy. And I don't just mean the West.
Well, to Dan's point, this guy seems more like the king of net zero, not so much the prince. But this is something that Danielle Smith also brought up. She was questioned about what the feds offered, and she said, it's not what they offered, it's what they didn't offer. They haven't been talking about natural gas expansion or developing anything like that. All they're talking about is this net zero garbage and trying to force us to comply by 2035. It's not possible. And even places that pollute far more than us, like India and China and them, are committing to timeframes much further than ours.
Wondering specifically, what the feds try to give you and how did it fall short?
Well, it's not what they're trying to give us. I look at the outcome. I look at what are the projects that are being put forward to the electric system operator and the Alberta Utilities Commission for approval. And we have 0 large-scale natural gas plants being proposed. That tells me something about the level of uncertainty that natural gas plants have. Because remember, this is written as criminal violation, if you do not meet the target by 2035. So what CEO is going to, by 2035, building with today's technology, be able to guarantee a 95% abatement on their CO2 within 10 years with technology that doesn't exist, on risk of going to jail? And I'm going to tell you there are 0. And so that is the nature of the problem that we have. When natural gas plants get built on today's technology, they have about a 25-year time horizon in order that they don't have stranded assets. And so that's why we have asked the federal government to align around emissions reduction policy that's reasonable around 2050. That's what the rest of the world is committing to. China's committing to 2060. India's committing to 2070. China and India are both bringing on coal plants at a rate that far exceeds anything that we produce in Canada. And so why would we punish our industry? Why would we risk blackouts? Why would we risk grid instability for an unachievable target? Why not work with us to try to find best available technology without these punitive measures?
And this is even something that our friend, as you saw from the opening there, Anita K, which if you haven't subscribed to her channel, I would highly suggest you go do that because she does great content. She even was emphasizing while she was on Sky News, BC alone is essentially the Amazon rainforest. It has so much greenery. Our country has so much greenery. We don't need to be fighting carbon the way they expect us to. And to have solely the renewable energy, our climate, as I said, does not work with that. You need to have oil and gas as a backup. You can't just solely rely on that because it's so intermittent. We are going to have what happened to Spain and Portugal here in Canada if that's the way they go.
He touts himself as a climate activist, that net zero is going to protect the world. Why will it protect the world? We're in Canada. Half our country is all wilderness. I live in a rainforest. The world has gotten greener since. The carbon is good for the planet, but he has guilted a nation, guilted the world into thinking that climate is bad, carbon is bad. But you need carbon. And this absolute fanaticism of not using oil and gas and traditional power resources is not working. And, you can maybe use a bit of solar in Spain because they have a lot of sun. You cannot use solar in Canada. We just don't have enough sun for that. And to have ridiculous wind turbines going, it's a major environmental waste, but they don't sell it that way.
No, they don't. They just focus on trying to make you feel bad, try to make you go green and eco-friendly and all that garbage, even though we aren't even focusing on EV plants, though we have 100% tariffs on China right now. Makes absolutely no sense. But with all that being said, let me know what you guys think about all this news. Was it a rough week for you? Are you finally glad that it's over? It's coming to an end? Let me know in the comment section below. And as always, I will catch you guys on the next one. Thanks so much.